I've carried this story for years, and it's time I finally let it out. 5 years ago, I vanished. I walked away from my home, my family, my entire life, and no one knew why. It wasn't an easy decision, and believe me, it wasn't done lightly, but when I tell you what happened, perhaps you'll understand. Let me set the stage. I was 32, living what I thought was the American dream. My wife, Amanda, and I had been married for years. We met in college, and to me, she was perfect, brilliant, beautiful, charismatic. She could win anyone over with her smile. We had a daughter, Lily, who had just turned 6 months old. I adored that little girl. Every time she laughed, it felt like the world stopped spinning. I was convinced life couldn't get better. We lived in a quaint suburb outside Boston, in one of those neighborhoods where the grass is always green, the mailboxes are identical, and the neighbors keep tabs on each other more than they'd admit. Amanda was the social butterfly of the street. She organized block parties, led book clubs, and made friends with everyone. I worked as an architect, often late hours, but I didn't mind. I thought I was building a life for us. Turns out, I was building something on quicksand. The night everything started to unravel was a rainy Wednesday in April. I'll never forget it. I came home soaked from head to toe after being caught in a downpour. The house was oddly quiet. Usually, I'd hear Amanda humming or Lily babbling in her crib, but this time, nothing. I called out, "Amanda? Lily?" No response. I walked into the living room and found Amanda sitting on the couch, staring at her phone. She didn't even look up. "Hey," I said, trying to shake off the unease. "Everything okay?" She jumped, as if I'd caught her doing something she shouldn't. "Oh, you're home," she said, quickly locking her phone and tucking it under a pillow. Her smile was forced, almost mechanical. "Where's Lily?" I asked, glancing around. The baby monitor was on the coffee table, silent. "She's with Mom," Amanda said, too quickly. I needed a break, a little me time. I nodded, but something felt off. Amanda loved being with Lily. She rarely asked her mom to babysit, especially not on a random weeknight. But I didn't push. I figured she was tired, maybe overwhelmed. Parenting is hard. I get it. I headed upstairs to shower and change. That's when I noticed the first red flag. Amanda's laptop was open on the bed, and her email inbox was up. I'm not the kind of guy who snoops, but one email subject line caught my eye. "I miss you too." It was from someone named Nick. I froze. My stomach dropped, and my mind raced. Who the hell was Nick? Why was he emailing my wife, and what exactly did he miss? Before I could stop myself, I clicked on the email. The message was short, but it hit me like a truck. "Can't wait to see you again. Last night was incredible. I miss you too." I stood there, staring at the screen, my hands shaking. Last night. I'd been home last night. Amanda had gone to a book club meeting. She kissed me goodbye, said she'd be back late, and I hadn't thought twice about it. Now I was questioning everything. I heard Amanda coming up the stairs and I panicked. I quickly closed the laptop and pretended to be folding laundry. She walked in, her face calm, almost too calm. "What are you doing?" she asked, eyeing me. "Just folding clothes," I said, forcing a smile. My voice sounded fake, even to me. She nodded and started rummaging through the closet as if nothing was wrong. But I couldn't unsee that email. I couldn't unfeel the pit in my stomach. That night, I barely slept. Amanda lay beside me, breathing evenly, while I stared at the ceiling, wondering who she really was. Over the next few days, I became a detective in my own home. I started noticing things I'd ignored before. The late-night texts, the way she'd laugh at her phone, the sudden girls' nights that had become more frequent. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Then, one evening, I came home to find a letter on the kitchen counter. It wasn't addressed to me. It was addressed to Amanda. The return address was unfamiliar. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a handwritten note. "Can't wait to see you again this weekend. Love, Nick." That was it. The confirmation I'd been dreading. My wife was cheating on me. I didn't confront her immediately. Instead, I started planning my exit. I couldn't stay in a house built on lies, but more than that, I couldn't look at Amanda without seeing betrayal. I packed a bag, took some cash, and left a note on the kitchen counter. "I know. Don't look for me." And just like that, I disappeared. The night I left, I didn't know where I was going. I just drove. The city lights blurred into a haze, and my thoughts were spinning. Amanda's face, the emails, the note from Nick, they all kept replaying in my mind like a broken record. How had I been so blind? How could someone I trusted with my whole heart betray me so completely? I ended up at a cheap motel on the outskirts of town. The room smelled like mildew, and the mattress felt like it hadn't been replaced since the Reagan administration, but I didn't care. I just needed a place to think. I threw my bag on the floor and collapsed onto the bed. For the first time in years, I cried. Not just a few tears. I mean full-on, gut-wrenching sobs. I wasn't just mourning my marriage. I was mourning the life I thought I had. I stayed in that motel for a week. I ignored Amanda's calls and texts. At first, they were frantic. "Michael, where are you? What's going on?" Then they turned angry. "If you don't come back, I swear." And finally, they stopped altogether. That hurt more than I expected. I had hoped, stupidly, that she might fight for us, but instead, her silence felt like confirmation that I'd made the right decision. But the worst part wasn't the silence. It was the doubt creeping in. What if I had misunderstood? What if there was some innocent explanation? Maybe Nick was just a friend, and I had overreacted. The guilt gnawed at me until I couldn't take it anymore. I needed answers. I hired a private investigator. His name was Greg, a no-nonsense guy with a sharp jawline and a coffee addiction. I gave him all the details, Amanda's emails, the letter, everything I had, and he assured me he'd get to the bottom of it. "Give me a week," he said, taking a sip from his ever-present thermos. "If she's hiding something, I'll find it." Those 7 days felt like an eternity. I went through every emotion imaginable: anger, sadness, hope, dread. I wanted Greg to find nothing, but I also needed him to find everything. It was a paradox I couldn't resolve. When Greg finally called, my heart sank. "Michael," he said, his voice grim, "we need to meet. You're going to want to see this in person." We met at a diner just off the highway. Greg slid into the booth across from me, a thick manila folder in his hand. He didn't waste time with small talk. "Your wife," he said, placing the folder on the table, "has been busy." He opened the folder, and my world shattered. Photos of Amanda laughing and holding hands with Nick. The two of them at a hotel, checking in together. And the worst one, Amanda kissing him in the parking lot of a restaurant we used to go to on our anniversary. My stomach turned. But it wasn't just the photos. Greg had dug up texts, emails, and even financial records. Amanda had been siphoning money from our joint account for months. She wasn't just cheating on me. She was building a life with Nick behind my back. "There's more," Greg said, pulling out a document. "This is a paternity test." My head snapped up. "Eh, what?" I ran a background check on Nick. "Turns out he and your wife have been seeing each other for a lot longer than you think." I had a hunch, so I did some digging. "Michael, Lily isn't your daughter." The words hit me like a freight train. I stared at him, unable to process what he had just said. "That's not possible," I whispered. "You're wrong. I wish I was," Greg said. "But the test doesn't lie." I couldn't breathe. My mind flashed back to the nights I'd spent rocking Lily to sleep, singing to her, telling her she was my world. And now I was being told she wasn't even mine. The betrayal wasn't just Amanda, it was my entire life. I left the diner in a daze, the folder clutched in my hands. I drove back to the motel and sat on the bed, staring at the photos, the texts, the test results. Every piece of evidence screamed the same thing. Amanda had destroyed me, and she hadn't even flinched. I wanted to confront her. I wanted to scream, to demand answers. But instead, I did what I do best. I planned. Amanda thought she could just move on with her life, but she was about to learn a harsh lesson. I wasn't going to make it easy for her. After Greg's revelation, I was no longer the same man. The Michael who had walked out of his home a week ago, devastated and heartbroken, was gone. In his place stood someone colder, sharper, someone who had been forged in betrayal. I wasn't just angry, I was determined. Amanda thought she could bury her lies and move on, but she underestimated me. I spent that night crafting a plan. I knew I couldn't confront her yet, not without gathering every piece of ammunition I could. Greg had given me the foundation, but I needed more. I wanted to make sure that when the time came, Amanda would have no room to wiggle out of the truth. The first step was Lily. I couldn't just abandon her. Even if the paternity test said she wasn't mine, she was an innocent child caught in a web of lies she didn't create. I called Amanda's mother, Diane, who had been babysitting Lily more often than usual. Diane and I always got along well, and I figured she might know more than she realized. "Diane," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "how's Lily doing?" I've been away. She's fine, Michael, Diane said, her voice warm but tinged with confusion. But Amanda said you were on a work trip. Are you okay? You sound different. Work trip, of course. Amanda was covering her tracks. I'm fine, I lied. Just busy. Has Amanda been, I don't know, acting strange lately? Diane hesitated. Well, she's been very secretive. She drops Lily off and leaves in a hurry. I asked her if everything was okay, and she just brushed me off. Why, is something wrong? I bit my tongue. Diane clearly didn't know about Nick, and I didn't want to drag her into this mess. No, nothing's wrong. Thanks for taking care of Lily. That conversation only fueled my determination. Amanda was lying to everyone, not just me. But Diane had given me an idea. If Amanda was leaving Lily with her so often, it meant she and Nick were likely meeting up during those times. I called Greg and asked him to follow her. If Amanda was making moves, I needed to know where and when. Greg didn't disappoint. 2 days later, he sent me a series of texts. 1:15 p.m. Amanda just dropped Lily off at Diane's house. 1:45 p.m. She's at a hotel downtown. Nick's car is in the parking lot. 2 p.m. They just checked in. My blood boiled as I read his updates. Amanda wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. She was bold enough to parade around with Nick in broad daylight. But I stayed calm. This wasn't the time for confrontation. I told Greg to keep tracking her while I worked on the next phase of my plan. That night, I went through our financial records. Amanda had been withdrawing small amounts from our savings account, just enough to avoid suspicion, but over time, it had added up. She was funneling money into a separate account, one I hadn't known about until Greg found it. The account was in her name and had nearly $25,000 in it. I couldn't believe it. She was building a safety net for herself while leaving me in the dark. The next day, I went to the bank and closed our joint account. I moved all the remaining funds into a new account under my name. I also froze the credit cards. If Amanda wanted to play dirty, I wasn't going to make it easy for her. I left just enough in her secret account to keep her from noticing anything right away. I wanted her to feel secure, to think she was still in control. Then I started working on my exit strategy. I contacted a lawyer, explaining the situation without holding back. He advised me to document everything, every text, email, photo, and financial transaction. You need to be prepared, he said. When this comes to light, she's going to fight back. By the end of the week, I had a file so thick it could have been mistaken for a novel. But I wasn't done yet. There was one final piece of the puzzle I needed to confirm. Greg called me with more updates. Michael, I followed them again. They're getting sloppy. They've been meeting at the same hotel every few days. But there's something else you need to know. What is it? I asked, bracing myself. Nick's married. His wife doesn't know about Amanda. I sat back, stunned. Of course, this wasn't just about me. Nick was playing the same game Amanda was, living a double life and lying to everyone around him. It made me sick, but it also gave me leverage. If I played my cards right, I could unravel their entire charade. That weekend, I drove to the address Greg had given me, Nick's house. I parked a few blocks away and walked up to the door, my heart pounding. I rang the doorbell, and a woman answered. She was in her early 30s, with kind eyes and a baby on her hip. Hi, I said, forcing a smile. Are you Mrs. Taylor? She frowned, clearly puzzled. Yes, can I help you? I think you might want to hear this, I said, handing her an envelope. Inside were photos of Nick and Amanda, along with copies of their emails. I didn't stay to see her reaction. As much as I wanted to see the fallout, I knew that this wasn't about her. It was about me reclaiming my life. On the drive back, I felt a strange sense of relief. The truth was out there now, spreading like wildfire. Amanda and Nick's carefully constructed lies were about to collapse, and I didn't have to lift another finger. But this was just the beginning. I wasn't done yet. The fallout from my visit to Nick's wife was immediate. By the next day, I started getting text messages from Amanda, frantic, panicked, and laced with desperation. Michael, where are you? We need to talk. Please come home. I don't know what's going on, but we can fix this. What did you do? Nick's wife called me screaming. You're ruining everything. There it was, the shift from concern to anger. She wasn't worried about me. She was worried about herself, about Nick, about the house of cards I had just set on fire. But I didn't respond. I wanted her to stew in her own lies for a little while longer. Meanwhile, Greg kept feeding me updates. Amanda and Nick had stopped meeting at the hotel. Instead, They were scrambling to cover their tracks. Nick had moved out of his house, and Amanda was suddenly spending a lot of time with her lawyer. Greg even caught her visiting the bank, likely to check on her hidden account. A small, satisfying victory, knowing she'd soon realize most of the money was gone. But the best part came a few days later when Amanda finally cracked. She called me at 2 a.m., her voice shaking. "Michael, I know you're upset," she began, her tone dripping with fake sincerity. "But we need to talk about this. I can explain everything." I leaned back on the motel bed, the faint hum of a highway in the background. "Explain what, Amanda?" I asked, my voice cold and measured. "That you've been lying to me for years? That Lily isn't mine? Or that you've been siphoning money to run away with Nick?" There was a long pause. For a moment, I thought she might hang up, but instead, she took a deep breath and said, "It's not what you think." I almost laughed. "Really? Because it looks pretty clear to me." "It just happened," she stammered. "Nick and it wasn't serious at first. I didn't mean for it to get this far." "Oh, so it's my fault you cheated on me and had a kid with another man." My voice rose, years of bottled-up frustration spilling out. "Do you even hear yourself, Amanda?" "I made a mistake," she said, her voice breaking. "But we can move past this. For Lily. For us. For Lily." I repeated, incredulous. "She's not even mine. As for Lily, I will always love her, but I cannot continue living a lie." I hit send and immediately felt a strange mix of relief and dread. There was no turning back now. Within hours, my phone started blowing up. Messages poured in from mutual friends, Amanda's family, even her colleagues. Most were supportive, expressing shock and disbelief at Amanda's actions. Some couldn't believe she was capable of such betrayal. But a few messages were accusatory, calling me petty for airing our dirty laundry. One message stood out. It was from Diane, Amanda's mother. "Michael, I had no idea what she was doing. I am so sorry for everything. Please don't cut off Lily. She loves you so much, and she's innocent in all of this." Her words stung. I didn't blame Lily, but I couldn't unsee the truth. Every time I thought of her, I remembered that she wasn't mine, that Amanda had built our family on a lie. While the email stirred up chaos in our social circle, Amanda was scrambling to control the narrative. She started calling everyone who would listen, claiming I was twisting the truth and that I was the one who abandoned her and Lily. But the evidence I shared was irrefutable. People began questioning her story, and she quickly found herself backed into a corner. Greg called me a few days later with an update. "Michael, Amanda's in damage control mode. She's been meeting with her lawyer almost daily, and she's trying to figure out how to salvage her reputation. Nick, on the other hand, has gone radio silent. Looks like his wife kicked him out, and he's staying at a friend's place." "Good," I said flatly. "They deserve each other." But Greg wasn't done. "There's more. Amanda's account is nearly empty. I think she's starting to realize the money's gone." I smirked. I'd left just enough in the account to keep her from noticing immediately, but now the reality was hitting her. She couldn't use my hard-earned savings to fund her fantasy life with Nick. The breaking point came a week later. Amanda showed up at my lawyer's office unannounced while I was there, signing the final divorce papers. I hadn't seen her since the night I left, and the sight of her was almost jarring. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, hair disheveled. Her usual confident demeanor was replaced with desperation. "Michael, we need to talk," she said, her voice trembling. "There's nothing left to talk about," I replied coldly, not even looking up from the papers. "Please," she said, her voice cracking. "For Lily, for us." I put down the pen and looked her straight in the eye. "There is no us, Amanda. You destroyed that the moment you lied to me. And as for Lily, I will always care about her, but she's not my daughter. You made sure of that." She flinched as if I'd slapped her. "I didn't mean for this to happen," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I made a mistake." "A mistake," I repeated, my voice rising. "This wasn't a mistake, Amanda. This was years of lies. You didn't just cheat on me. You built an entire life on deceit. You stole my money, you stole my trust, and you stole my future." She sobbed, collapsing into the chair across from me. For a brief moment, I felt a pang of pity, but then I remembered everything she'd done, and that pity vanished. "I'm done," I said firmly. "You can keep the house, the car, whatever. But I'm moving on, and you're going to have to live with the consequences of your actions." As I walked out of the office, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. For the first time in years, I felt free. That night, I checked my email and found dozens of messages from people who had seen the evidence. Many offered support, but one message caught my attention. It was from Nick's wife. "Michael, thank you for telling me the truth. Nick is out of the house, and I've filed for divorce. If you ever need someone to talk to, I'm here." I didn't reply right away. I wasn't ready to think about the future yet. But her message reminded me that I wasn't alone. Amanda and Nick's lies had hurt more people than just me, and now they were facing the fallout. The fallout from Amanda's lies was growing by the day. Everywhere I turned, people who once admired her were now seeing her true colors. The evidence I'd shared wasn't just damning, it was undeniable. Her carefully constructed image of the perfect wife and doting mother had crumbled, and now she was left scrambling to pick up the pieces. Greg kept me updated on her every move. "She's in panic mode," he told me one evening. "Her lawyer is trying to negotiate for spousal support, but with the financial records we have, that's not going to happen. She's also trying to reach Nick, but he's not responding." Hearing that Nick had ghosted her was almost satisfying. It was poetic, really. She'd thrown away her marriage for a man who didn't even have the decency to stick around when things got tough. Meanwhile, my own life was slowly stabilizing. I'd found a small apartment in the city, far enough from the memories of our old neighborhood, but close enough to keep an eye on Lily. Despite everything, I couldn't bring myself to completely sever ties with her. She was innocent in all of this, and I still felt a responsibility to make sure she was okay. One afternoon, Diane called me, her voice shaky. "Michael, I need to talk to you about Amanda. She's not doing well." I sighed, rubbing my temples. "What's going on?" "She's losing it," Diane admitted. "She's barely eating, she's not taking care of Lily, and she's constantly on her phone trying to get Nick to call her back. I don't know what to do." For a moment, I felt a flicker of pity. Amanda had brought this on herself. But hearing that she was neglecting Lily struck a nerve. "Have you talked to her?" I asked. "I've tried," Diane said, "but she won't listen to me. She just keeps saying she didn't mean for things to end up this way." "Well, they did," I said firmly. "And now she has to deal with it." Diane sighed heavily. "I know, I'm worried about Lily." That hit me hard. No matter how angry I was at Amanda, I couldn't let Lily suffer because of her mistakes. "I'll check on her," I promised. The next day, I showed up at the house. It was the first time I'd been back since I left, and stepping inside felt surreal. The once cozy home now felt cold and empty. Amanda was sitting on the couch, staring blankly at the TV, a half-empty wine glass in her hand. She looked like a shadow of the woman I had once loved. "Amanda," I said sharply, snapping her out of her daze. "Where's Lily?" "She's in her room," Amanda muttered, barely looking at me. I walked past her and found Lily playing quietly in her crib. She looked up at me and smiled, and for a moment, all my anger melted away. She didn't know the truth. To her, I was still her dad. I picked her up and held her close, feeling a pang of guilt for staying away so long. "Hey, sweetheart," I whispered. "I've missed you." Amanda appeared in the doorway, leaning against the frame. "You're still her father, you know," she said softly. "That hasn't changed." I looked at her, my expression hardening. "You don't get to say that. You took that away from me." Tears welled up in her eyes, but I didn't care. I wasn't here for her. I was here for Lily. Over the next few weeks, I made it a point to spend more time with Lily. I didn't want her to feel abandoned, even if the circumstances were complicated. Diane was a big help, offering to babysit whenever Amanda couldn't or wouldn't. Slowly but surely, I began to rebuild my relationship with her. Meanwhile, Amanda's life continued to spiral. Nick had completely cut her off, and word had gotten out about the affair. She was losing friends left and right, and even some of her closest allies were distancing themselves. Diane told me she was considering selling the house, unable to keep up with the bills now that I was no longer footing the majority of them. One evening, Greg called me with unexpected news. "Michael, you're not going to believe this," he said, his voice tinged with amusement. "Nick's wife filed for divorce, and guess who's listed as a witness?" "Me," I guessed. "Bingo," Greg said. "She wants you to testify about the affair." The thought of standing in court and airing all of Amanda and Nick's dirty laundry was tempting, but I wasn't sure if I wanted to go that far. "What do you think I should do?" I asked. "That's up to you," Greg said. "But it could be a chance to get some closure and make sure they both face some consequences." I told him I'd think about it. Part of me wanted to move on, to leave all the drama behind and focus on rebuilding my life. But another part of me felt like Amanda and Nick deserved to face the full weight of their actions. A week later, I got a call from Amanda, her voice shaky, almost unrecognizable. "Michael, I need your help." I sighed. "What is it now, Amanda?" I think I'm going to lose the house," she said, her voice breaking. "I don't have the money to keep up with the mortgage, and Nick won't return my calls. I don't know what to do." For a moment, I felt a flicker of the old Michael, the one who would have bent over backward to help her. But then I remembered everything she'd done, and that flicker disappeared. "That's not my problem," I said firmly. "You made your bed, now lie in it." I didn't hear from Amanda for several days after she called me, begging for help to save the house. I thought she might have finally realized that I wasn't her safety net anymore. But then Diane called me again, her voice trembling. "Michael," she said, "Amanda's in trouble. She's not coping well, and I'm afraid she might do something drastic." I sighed, running a hand through my hair. "Diane, I can't keep fixing her mistakes. She made this mess, and now she has to deal with it." "I know," Diane said softly. "But Lily's caught in the middle. She doesn't deserve this." That struck a chord. Whatever my feelings toward Amanda, Lily was innocent. She deserved stability, and right now, it seemed Amanda couldn't provide that. The next day, I went to the house to check on Lily. The sight that greeted me was worse than I expected. The living room was a mess, with toys scattered everywhere and unopened bills piling up on the coffee table. Amanda was sitting on the couch, staring blankly at the TV, a half-empty wine glass in her hand. She looked like a shadow of the woman I had once loved. "Amanda," I said sharply, snapping her out of her daze. "Where's Lily?" "She's in her room," Amanda muttered, barely looking at me. I walked past her and found Lily playing quietly in her crib. She looked up at me with a big smile, and my heart ached. She didn't deserve to grow up in this chaos. When I returned to the living room, I found Amanda crying, her head in her hands. "I don't know what to do, Michael," she sobbed. "I've lost everything. My friends, my reputation, even Nick. I'm a failure." For a moment, I felt a flicker of pity, but then I reminded myself of everything she had done. This wasn't just about her bad choices. It was about the lies she had told and the people she had hurt along the way. "Get help, Amanda," I said firmly. "For Lily's sake. She deserves better than this." In the days that followed, I started taking more responsibility for Lily. I arranged for her to stay with me part-time, and Diane helped when I couldn't. It wasn't an ideal situation, but it was better than leaving her in Amanda's care full-time. Meanwhile, the fallout from Amanda's actions continued. Her social circle had all but abandoned her, and rumors about her affair were spreading through the neighborhood. She was trying to sell the house, but with her tarnished reputation and the financial mess she was in, she wasn't getting many offers. Greg gave me one final update about Nick. "He's officially divorced," he said. "His ex-wife got the house, custody of their kids, and a hefty chunk of his assets. He's staying with a friend now, completely broke." Hearing that gave me a strange sense of satisfaction. Nick had been just as complicit as Amanda in this mess, and now he was facing the consequences. One evening, as I was putting Lily to bed in my apartment, my phone buzzed. It was an email from Nick's ex-wife. "Michael, thank you for testifying. It meant the world to me. I'm moving on with my life now, and I hope you find peace too." I hadn't planned on testifying, but when her lawyer reached out, I realized it was the right thing to do. I told the court everything I knew, and it helped her secure a fair settlement. It wasn't about revenge, it was about ensuring justice. As Amanda's life continued to spiral, I found myself feeling something I hadn't expected: closure. For years, I had been living in a web of lies, but now the truth was out. Amanda's betrayal no longer defined me. I was free to rebuild my life on my terms. One evening, Diane called me with surprising news. "Michael, Amanda's checking into a rehab program," she said. "She finally admitted she needs help." I wasn't sure how to feel about that. Part of me wanted to be angry that it had taken losing everything for Amanda to take responsibility, but another part of me felt relieved. Maybe this was the first step toward her being a better mother for Lily. For the first time in years, I felt a sense of hope. My life wasn't perfect, but it was mine again. I had a chance to start over, to build something real. And as I looked at Lily sleeping peacefully in her crib, I knew one thing for sure. The future was brighter without Amanda's lies weighing me down. Months passed, and life started to settle into a new kind of normal. Amanda had checked into rehab and was working through her issues, or so Diane told me. I kept my distance, focusing instead on Lily and myself. For the first time in years, I felt like I was living on my terms, free from the weight of Amanda's betrayal. Lily spent more time with me than ever. I'd rearranged my apartment to make it feel more like a home for her, complete with a room filled with her favorite toys and a small bookshelf for bedtime stories. Every laugh, every hug from her was a reminder that despite the lies and heartbreak, there was still something pure and good in my life. One evening, Diane came by with Lily after babysitting her for the day. We sat in the kitchen while Lily played in her room. Diane looked tired but hopeful. "Amanda's doing better," she said. "She's been in rehab for 2 months now. She wants to talk to you." I leaned back in my chair, letting her words sink in. "What does she want to say?" "She says she owes you an apology," Diane said. "And she wants to try to rebuild a relationship with Lily, at least." I wasn't sure how to feel about that. Amanda had done so much damage, not just to me, but to Lily as well. But if she was serious about turning her life around, maybe it was worth considering. "I'll think about it," I said finally. Diane nodded, clearly relieved. That's all I asked. A week later, Amanda and I met at a neutral location, Diane's house. She looked different, thinner and more subdued, but there was a clarity in her eyes that hadn't been there before. "Michael," she began, her voice trembling. "I don't know if you'll ever forgive me, and I don't expect you to, but I'm sorry. For everything. For the lies, the betrayal, the pain I caused you and Lily." I listened in silence, watching as she struggled to find the words. "I know I don't deserve your trust," she continued, "but I want to be better for Lily, if nothing else." Her words sounded genuine, but I wasn't ready to forgive. "It's not about me anymore," I said. "It's about Lily. If you're serious about being a good mother to her, I won't stand in your way. But if you ever hurt her the way you hurt me, I'll fight to make sure she's never put in that position again." Amanda nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you," she whispered. Over the next few months, Amanda slowly started to rebuild her life. She sold the house and moved into a modest apartment closer to Diane, who continued to help her with Lily. I kept my distance, maintaining a civil but guarded relationship for Lily's sake. Meanwhile, my own life took unexpected turns. I threw myself into my work, taking on projects that reignited my passion for architecture. I also started seeing a therapist, which helped me process the betrayal and move forward without the bitterness weighing me down. One day, while dropping Lily off at Amanda's place, I noticed something that surprised me. Amanda was smiling, a real, genuine smile. She was playing with Lily on the floor, laughing as they built a tower of blocks together. For the first time in years, I saw a glimpse of the woman I had once loved. It didn't make me forget what she had done, but it gave me hope that maybe, just maybe, she was on the path to redemption. As for me, I started dating again, slowly, cautiously, but with an openness I hadn't felt in years. I met someone who understood my past, but didn't let it define our future. She made me realize that while Amanda's betrayal had broken me, it hadn't destroyed me. I was still capable of love, trust, and hope. Looking back, I realized that disappearing from my own life wasn't just about escaping Amanda's lies. It was about finding myself again. And now, as I stood on the threshold of a new chapter, I knew one thing for sure. I was ready to live. Epilogue. They say time heals all wounds, and while I'm not sure that's entirely true, I do believe it brings clarity. Amanda's betrayal will always be a part of my story, but it no longer defines me. I found peace, purpose, and most importantly, hope for the future. And for that, I'm grateful.